The man kneeling at the small grave in Elmwood Cemetery looked like every parent's nightmare. 6'3", covered in Hell's Angels patches, sobbing into his tattooed hands. But the teenage girl watching him from behind an oak tree knew something impossible. His son wasn't dead. For 3 days, Mia Carter had been sneaking food to an 8-year-old boy hiding in Detroit's abandoned Packard plant. A boy who kept whispering a name that matched the gravestone 20 feet away. The date on that grave said, Lucas James Reynolds died 6 days ago. The boy Mia found with rope burns on his wrists and his feet wrapped in plastic bags. He'd been alive 3 days ago. In the next 18 minutes, one homeless girl's whispered confession would expose a trafficking ring operating inside Detroit's emergency services and mobilize 220 bikers who were about to prove that sometimes justice doesn't carry a badge. It carries a Spider-Man toy, and the truth nobody wanted to hear. Hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us where you're from, because this story will change how you see the people society overlooks. Now let me tell you how Mia Carter saved a boy who was buried alive by the system. Sir, he's behind the factory. He's alive. He's been waiting for you. The words hung in the freezing January air between Mia Rose Carter and the massive man kneeling at the grave. Her voice barely carried over the wind whistling through bare cemetery trees. 19 degrees Fahrenheit. Snow crunching under her worn boots, the right sole flapping with every step, making that distinctive sound, tap-scrape, tap-scrape. She'd been watching him for almost 2 hours, watching this giant of a man, 6'3", covered in tattoos and leather patches that read Hell's Angels and Sergeant at Arms, cry like a broken child at a small grave marker. She'd almost left 3 times. Her fingers were numb even inside her fingerless gloves, tucked deep into the sleeves of her oversized, donated coat. The holes in both pockets let the cold straight through to her ribs. But she'd made a promise to a little boy who'd given her his only treasure, a small plastic Spider-Man figure, and whispered, "Show Daddy. He'll know it's me." Now, you might be thinking a 15-year-old homeless girl approaches a Hell's Angel at a cemetery, and nothing good comes from that. That's not the story you expected, is it? But Mia wasn't thinking about stereotypes. She was thinking about Lucas's face 3 days ago when she'd found him in that maintenance closet, his lips blue from cold, his small body shaking so hard the newspapers he'd buried himself under rustled like autumn leaves. The man's head snapped up. His face was wet with tears, eyes red and swollen. For 3 seconds, Mia counted them, the way her father had taught her to count through fear. He just stared at her. Then his expression shifted to something darker. "Get lost, kid." His voice was rough gravel, dismissive. He turned back to the grave. Mia's hands shook. Every instinct screamed run, but she saw Lucas in her mind, heard his wheezing cough, remembered the rope burns around his tiny wrists. "Sir, I need to tell you something." Her voice cracked. She swallowed, tried again. "About your son." The man froze, slowly, like a predator deciding whether to pounce or ignore. He stood to his full height. The patches on his vest caught the fading afternoon light. Hell's Angels. Detroit. sergeant at arms, a skull with wings, names she couldn't read from this distance. He was terrifying standing up. Mia took an involuntary step back. Her boot caught on ice. She stumbled but didn't fall. "What did you say?" The words came out low, dangerous. Mia forced her frozen fingers to dig into her coat pocket. They closed around the small plastic toy. She pulled it out, held it forward with a shaking hand. It was a Spider-Man figure. Small, worn, paint chipped on the mask. One leg slightly bent from years of play. "Your son Lucas," Mia whispered. "He gave me this. Said to show you. Said you'd know it was real." The man stared at the toy. His face went white. Actually white, like blood had drained from his skin in an instant. His massive hand, scarred knuckles, faded tattoos between the fingers, reached out, then stopped halfway, trembling. "Where did you get that?" His voice was barely audible now. "Behind the Packard plant." The words tumbled out of Mia now, urgent, desperate. "There's a broken window that leads to a sub-basement. There's a little boy there. He's 8 years old. He's been hiding for 2 weeks. He's sick and freezing, and he won't leave because he thinks you don't want him anymore." The man stumbled backward. His hand found a stone bench near the grave. He sat hard, like his legs had given out. The Spider-Man figure fell from Mia's hand into his palm. He held it like it might shatter. "This isn't possible." But even as he said it, Mia saw something in his eyes. Not just disbelief, recognition, horror, hope. "He has rope burns on his wrists," Mia continued, her voice stronger now. "Cigarette burns on his arm. His fingers are broken. They healed wrong. He's so skinny I can see his ribs through 3 layers of clothes. He sleeps in Spider-Man pajamas. He has a birthmark on his neck shaped like Michigan." The man's breathing changed. Sharp, shallow gasps. His free hand came up to his face, covering his mouth. "He knows your address," Mia said. 847 Maple Street. "He knows your phone number. He recited all 10 digits to me. He calls for you in his sleep. 'Daddy, I'm cold. Daddy, find me.' He thinks you don't want him because the bad people showed him a newspaper that said he died." "Lucas." The word broke, coming out of the man's mouth. "That's Lucas. Every detail, the birthmark, the way he memorizes things. But Lucas is dead. We buried him. I saw the photos. His voice fractured completely. "I held his funeral." "He told me about the accident," Mia said, words coming faster now. 6 months ago, right? He said the ambulance man gave him a shot, and everything went dark. When he woke up, he was in a basement with other kids. They told him you didn't want him, that you moved on. They hurt him when he wouldn't stop asking for you. He escaped on New Year's Day, but he's too scared to go to police because they said they'd kill you if he told anyone." The man was shaking now, this massive biker shaking like a leaf. "He's been eating rats to survive," Mia whispered. "He's coughing so hard I think his ribs are broken. He's dying, sir. He's dying waiting for you to find him." For 5 seconds, nothing moved. The man sat on the bench, the toy Spider-Man clutched in his fist, tears streaming down his face. The wind picked up, sending snow devils swirling across the cemetery grounds. Then he surged to his feet, grabbed Mia by both shoulders. She flinched, but he was gentle despite the urgency. "Where? Exactly where?" "Packard plant, East Side, Building 3. Mia's voice came out steady now. She'd practiced this, rehearsed it in her head during the 2-hour walk here. "There's a steam tunnel entrance with a broken fence. Follow the tunnel to the sub-basement. Turn left at the junction. 3rd door, it's blocked with debris, but there's a gap at the bottom. He's in the maintenance closet behind that door. The man released her, pulled out a phone with hands that shook so badly he almost dropped it. Dialed. Put it to his ear. V-Rex. His voice was command now, urgent but controlled. I need every brother we've got. Full patch. Prospects. Hang-arounds. Everyone. Packard plant. East side. Now. A pause. Mia could hear a voice on the other end, questioning. V-Rex, listen to me. The man's voice cracked again. My son might be alive. I know how it sounds. I know. But I'm looking at his Spider-Man right now, the one that was supposed to be buried with him. And this girl is telling me things only Lucas would know. We need everyone. We need them now. Please. Another pause, shorter this time. Thank you. I'm heading there now. I'll explain everything when you arrive. He ended the call, looked at Mia with eyes that held 1,000 emotions she couldn't name. Get on the bike. You're taking me there right now. Mia had never been on a motorcycle before. She'd certainly never been on one driven by a Hell's Angel who'd just learned his dead son might be alive. But she climbed on behind him, wrapped her arms around his leather vest, and held on, as the Harley roared to life beneath them. The cemetery gates disappeared behind them at a speed that should have terrified her. But all Mia could think about was Lucas's face. How he'd looked at her 3 days ago with those huge green eyes and whispered, "If you find my daddy, tell him I'm sorry I ran away. Tell him I didn't mean to disappear. Tell him I love him." She was about to deliver all 3 messages. The ride took 7 minutes. 7 minutes of Mia clinging to this stranger. The winter wind cutting through her inadequate coat like knives. The engine vibration numbing her already frozen legs. They flew through red lights, wove between cars. The man drove like the road belonged to him, which, given the patches on his back, maybe it did. Building 3 of the Packard plant rose before them like a skeletal giant. 3.5 million square feet of abandoned automotive history, Detroit's most famous ruin. Broken windows gaped like missing teeth. Graffiti covered every surface that could hold paint. The setting sun cast long shadows through the empty window frames, making the whole structure look like it was on fire with darkness. The Harley skidded to a stop near the east side fence. The man, Mia realized she didn't even know his name, was off the bike before the engine fully died. But he paused, turned back to her. "What's your name?" His voice was different now. Not gentle exactly, but human, like he'd remembered she was a person, not just a messenger. Mia Carter. "I'm Jax." He extended his hand. She shook it. His palm dwarfed hers. "Jax Reynolds. And if you're right about this, I don't have words for what you've just done." "He's there," Mia promised. "I brought him food yesterday. Hot soup in a thermos I stole from the community center. He could barely hold it. His hands were shaking so bad from cold." Jax's jaw tightened. He turned to the fence, found the break Mia had described, and ducked through. She followed. Her boots, too small, toes cramped, slipped on ice inside the fence line. Jax's hand shot out, steadied her. Then they were running. The steam tunnel entrance was exactly where Mia had said, broken concrete steps leading down into darkness. Jax pulled out his phone, used the flashlight function. The tunnel stretched ahead, pipes overhead dripping water that had frozen into icicles. Their breath came out in white clouds. "Left at the junction," Mia said, her voice echoing off tile walls. "Then third door." They reached the junction, turned left. The corridor here was narrower, more claustrophobic. Mia counted doors. 1, 2, 3. The third door was partially blocked, just as she'd described. Someone had pushed an old filing cabinet against it from the outside, but there was a gap at the bottom, maybe 2 feet high. Mia had squeezed through 3 times before. Jack's was significantly larger. "Lucas?" Jax's voice cracked on the name. "Lucas, buddy, it's Daddy. Can you hear me?" Silence. Just the drip, drip, drip of water somewhere deeper in the building. Then, so soft, Mia almost missed it. "Daddy?" Jax made a sound Mia had never heard a grown man make, something between a sob and a gasp. He grabbed the filing cabinet with both hands and shoved. Metal screamed against concrete. The cabinet moved 6 inches, then a foot, then toppled sideways with a crash that echoed through the entire sub-basement. The door swung open. The maintenance closet was exactly 8 feet by 8 feet. Mia knew because Lucas had counted the tiles out loud to calm himself. 1 small window, broken, covered with cardboard. Concrete floor, pipes overhead. And in the far corner, buried under newspapers and 1 thin blanket, the one Mia had given him, was a small shape. Jax dropped to his knees at the entrance, didn't go in, didn't crowd the space. "Lucas?" His voice was gentle now, barely above a whisper. "Buddy, it's really me. It's Daddy." The shape moved. Newspapers rustled. A small face emerged from the makeshift nest. Pale, gaunt, cheekbones too prominent, lips tinged blue, dark hair matted against his skull, and eyes, green eyes that looked too big for his face, that stared at Jax with confusion and desperate, dangerous hope. "You're not real," the boy whispered. His voice was hoarse, broken. "Daddy's at home. Daddy thinks I'm dead. You're not real. The bad people said you won't come. They showed me the newspaper. It said I died." Jax pulled off his leather vest, the one with all his patches, his identity, his rank, held it out toward the boy. "Lucas James Reynolds," Jax said, voice steady now despite the tears streaming down his face. "Born May 14th, 2015. You love Spider-Man. You hate broccoli, but you'll eat it if I cover it in cheese sauce. Your favorite song is Thunder by Imagine Dragons. You can count to 100 in Spanish because Mommy taught you. You have a birthmark on your neck shaped like Michigan, and you used to tell everyone Michigan chose you special." The boy's breathing changed, faster, shallower. "When you were 5, Jax continued, I bought you a 2-pack of Spider-Man figures. You named them Spidey and Pete. You said they were best friends, like you and me. You took them everywhere. His voice broke. "You were holding one when we crashed. When I woke up in the hospital, they told me you were gone. They told me you were with Mommy now." "Mommy." The word came out of Lucas like a wound opening. "Where's Mommy? The bad people won't tell me where Mommy is." Jax's face crumpled, but he held it together. "Mommy's in heaven, buddy. The accident. Mommy didn't make it. But you did. You survived. And I've been looking for you. I've been missing you. I've been dying without you." Lucas stared at him. At the vest. At Mia standing behind Jax. Back to Jax's face. "Say the thing," Lucas whispered. "If you're real, say the thing we always say." Jax didn't hesitate. "Bear hugs are the best hugs." "Because bears are strong," Lucas continued, voice shaking. "And keep their cubs safe," Jax finished. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Lucas was scrambling out of his newspaper nest, dragging Mia's blanket with him, plastic bags still duct-taped to his feet, making crinkling sounds on the concrete. He stopped 2 feet from Jax, swaying like he might fall. Jax opened his arms, waited. Let Lucas choose. "Daddy?" Lucas's voice was so small. "Are you real?" "I'm real, buddy. I'm here. And I'm never letting you go again." Lucas fell forward. Jax caught him, wrapped him in the leather vest first, then in his massive arms. The boy disappeared against his father's chest, his small body racked with sobs that sounded like they'd been locked inside for 6 months. Jax buried his face in his son's matted hair and wept. Mia stood in the doorway, watching. Her own eyes burned. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Behind them, from somewhere above ground, came the sound of motorcycles. Not 1 or 2, dozens. The rumble growing louder, closer, filling the air like approaching thunder. The brothers were arriving. Jax stayed kneeling with Lucas for a full 5 minutes, neither letting go. Maya could see Lucas's small hands clutching his father's shirt, could hear the boy's rasping breath and broken sobs, could see Jax's shoulders shaking as he held his child who was supposed to be dead, who he'd buried, who he'd mourned for 6 months, safe in his arms for the first time since July. Above them, the sound of motorcycles cut off one by one. Silence. Then voices. Men calling to each other. Heavy boots on concrete floors above. Flashlight beams cutting through darkness. "Jax!" A voice echoed down the steam tunnel. "We're here. Where are you?" Jax pulled back just enough to look at Lucas's face, cupped it gently in his massive hands. Lucas flinched at first. Mia saw it, that instinctive recoil from touch. 6 months of abuse didn't disappear in 5 minutes, but Jax kept his movements slow, gentle, waiting for permission. "Lucas, buddy, a lot of my friends are here. They're here to help keep you safe. They're going to make sure the bad people never touch you again. Is that okay?" Lucas's eyes went wide with fear. "There's lots of them?" "About 200 by the time everyone shows up," Jax said gently. "But they're good guys. Every single one. They're my brothers. My family. And now they're your family too. Your protectors." 200? Lucas's voice cracked. That's a lot. That's how much you matter, buddy. That's how much we protect our own." Footsteps echoed closer in the tunnel. Flashlight beams appeared. Then men, big men in leather vests, faces hard and scarred, looking exactly like what they were. Outlaw bikers. But when they saw Lucas, this tiny, broken child wrapped in his father's vest, plastic bags on his feet, barely able to stand, every single one of them stopped. Mia watched their expressions shift, saw hardness become gentleness in real time. The first man to reach them was older, maybe 60, gray beard down to his chest, patches that read President and V. Rex. "Jesus Christ, Jax." His voice was rough with emotion. This is my son." Jax's voice was fierce, protective. "This is Lucas, and someone's going to pay for what they did to him." V. Rex knelt slowly, putting himself at Lucas's eye level. "Hey there, Lucas. I'm Victor, but everyone calls me V-Rex. I've known your daddy for 15 years. We're going to get you somewhere warm and safe, okay? Somewhere the bad people can't reach." Lucas looked at his father. Jax nodded. Only then did Lucas nod back. Another man appeared, this one younger, but with the calm, assessing eyes of medical training. His patches read, "Doc." "Jax, I need to look at him." Not a woman's voice. That came from behind him. Mia blinked as a woman in her 50s pushed through the crowd of men, her patches reading Sergeant at Arms and Doc Patricia. "I'm a former ER nurse," Doc Patricia said, her voice gentle but professional. "Lucas, honey, I'm going to check to make sure you're okay enough to move. Is that all right with you?" Lucas clutched his father tighter. Mia watched him bury his face against Jax's chest. "Can Daddy stay?" Lucas's muffled voice. "Daddy's not going anywhere," Jax promised. "He's going to hold you the whole time." Doc Patricia nodded. Mia watched as the woman examined Lucas without asking him to let go of his father. Checked his pulse at his neck. Looked at his fingernails, his lips, his eyes when he finally glanced at her. Asked quiet questions about pain. Noticed the rope burns, the cigarette burns, the bent fingers. Her face stayed professionally calm, but Mia saw her jaw tighten with each new injury she documented. "He needs a hospital," Patricia said finally. "Pneumonia developing, definite malnutrition, possible frostbite on his toes, and these injuries need proper examination and treatment. But he's stable enough to move. We should do it now before the cold gets worse." "I'm calling an ambulance," another biker said. This one with patches reading Reaper and what looked like former law enforcement in his bearing. "No," Jax's voice was sharp. "No ambulances. Not until we know who's involved." Everyone looked at him. "Mia," Jax turned to her. She startled at her name. "Tell them what Lucas told you, about the accident." Mia swallowed. 20+ bikers were staring at her now, waiting. She was 15, homeless, wearing a coat with holes. She looked like nothing, but they were listening like she mattered. "Lucas said," she began, voice shaking, "that after the car crash, a paramedic gave him a shot. That's the last thing he remembers before waking up in a basement. He said they showed him a newspaper saying he died. They told him his dad didn't want him anymore. They kept him for..." She looked at Lucas. "How long did they keep you?" Lucas's face was still pressed against Jax's chest, but he held up his fingers. "All 10. Then all 10 again. 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 Approximately." "6 months, Jax said, his voice hollow. "They've had him for 6 months. Since the accident." V-Rex's expression went dark. "Jax, are you saying..." "I'm saying someone in emergency services declared my living son dead and gave me someone else's body to bury." Jax's voice was cold now, controlled rage. "I'm saying there's a trafficking network operating in this city using official channels. And I'm saying we're going to find every single person involved and make sure they never see daylight again." Reaper stepped forward. "I used to be Detroit PD. If what you're saying is true, we need to be smart about this. Evidence. Documentation. We need everything airtight before we bring this to authorities we can trust." "Then we document everything," V-Rex said. His voice carried authority, the kind that made everyone stand straighter. "Patricia, you photograph every injury on that child. Every mark. You write down his testimony exactly as he gives it. Reaper, you start pulling records. The accident report, the death certificate, the autopsy report, all of it. Smoke!" He gestured to a younger biker with tech savvy written all over him. You start digging digital. Find out who was on duty that night. Who signed what paperwork. He turned to the assembled brothers. More had arrived while they talked. Mia could see them filing down into the tunnel, filling the corridor, easily 40 or 50 now, with more coming. Brothers, V-Rex's voice echoed off tile walls. This is what we do. This is why we exist. To protect those who can't protect themselves. This boy was stolen from his father and held captive for 6 months by people who were supposed to save him. That ends tonight. A rumble of agreement from the assembled bikers. But we do this right, V-Rex continued. We do this smart. We follow the law until the law gives us reason not to. We gather evidence. We build a case. And we make sure every single person involved in this goes to prison for the rest of their natural lives. Clear? Clear, came the unanimous response. Jax stood slowly, Lucas still wrapped in his vest, held against his chest like something infinitely precious. The boy was so small against his father's frame, so breakable, but alive, breathing, home. Mia, Jax said quietly, thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you. For finding him, for feeding him, for risking yourself to tell me. You saved my son's life. Every biker in that tunnel turned to look at Mia. She felt her face heat despite the cold. She's been bringing him food for 3 days. Lucas mumbled against his father's shirt. She gave me her blanket. She's the only one who helped. V-Rex studied Mia for a long moment. Took in her oversized coat with holes, her 2 small boots, her gaunt face, and chapped lips. How old are you, kid? 15. Where are your parents? My mom works 3 jobs. We live in our car. I was just... Mia's voice trailed off. She didn't want to explain that she'd been looking for copper wire to sell when she'd heard Lucas crying. You were just surviving. V-Rex finished. And while surviving yourself, you saved someone else's child. That takes a special kind of strength. He paused. We're going to help you too. You and your mother. But first, we need you to help us a bit more. Can you do that? Mia nodded. I need you to tell Reaper everything Lucas told you. Every detail. Dates, times, descriptions of the people who held him, anything you remember. And then, Jax added, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her feel seen for the first time in months. You're going to let us help you. No arguments. You saved my son. I owe you everything. And Hell's Angels pay their debts. The motorcycles kept coming. By the time Patricia had finished her preliminary examination of Lucas, documenting 17 separate injuries with her phone camera, each photograph time-stamped and geotagged, the rumble of engines had grown from a distant thunder to a constant roar that shook the remaining windows in the Packard plant's upper floors. Reaper stood at the tunnel entrance, counting. 87 from Detroit chapter. Flint's here. That's 52 more. Grand Rapids just pulled in. 48. Lansing's 10 minutes out, another 33. He looked at V-Rex. We're going to hit over 200 brothers within the hour. V-Rex nodded once, sharp and satisfied. Good. We're going to need every single one. Lucas had fallen asleep against his father's chest, exhaustion and relief finally overwhelming the adrenaline that had kept him alert for 2 weeks. Jax held him like something that might vanish if he loosened his grip even slightly. Patricia had wrapped both of them in thermal blankets from someone's saddlebag, Every biker carried emergency supplies, habits from years of long-distance riding. "We need to move him," Patricia said quietly. "The hospital." "Not yet," Jax's voice was firm. "Not until we know who to trust." "Then we bring the hospital to him," Patricia said. She turned to the tunnel entrance, raised her voice. "Wrench, get Doc Miller on the phone. Tell him we need a house call. Tell him it's Jax's son, and we're paying cash." A voice called back, "On it!" Mia sat against the concrete wall, watching everything unfold with a strange sense of unreality. 72 hours ago, she'd been alone, anonymous, invisible. Now she was at the center of something massive. Something that felt like justice taking physical form in leather and chrome. Reaper crouched beside her. Up close, she could see the signs of his former profession. The way he moved with controlled precision. The way his eyes constantly scanned for threats. The cop training that never fully left even after the badge came off. "Mia, I need you to walk me through everything Lucas told you, every conversation, every detail about the people who held him, the places he was kept. Can you do that?" Mia nodded, and for the next 20 minutes, she recited everything. Lucas's fragmented stories about the basement, about the man in the ambulance who'd given him the shot, about the caretakers who'd moved him between houses, about the threats. "If you tell, we kill your daddy." About the escape on New Year's Day, running through snow in just pajamas, feet going numb, lungs burning. Reaper recorded everything on his phone. His expression stayed neutral, professional, but Mia saw his jaw tighten with each new detail. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "The paramedic supervisor who responded to that accident," Reaper said finally. "His name is Victor Castellano. 27 years with Detroit Fire Department. Multiple commendations. Respected. Trusted." He paused. "And if what Lucas is saying is true, he's been using that trust to traffic children for over a decade." "Can you prove it?" V-Rex asked from across the small space. "We're going to—" Reaper stood. "But we need to be smart. If Castellano has been doing this for years, he's got a network. People covering for him. We go after him directly without evidence. They all scatter." "Then we build the case first," V-Rex said. "Smoke, where are you with the digital?" A younger biker appeared in the tunnel entrance, mid-20s, laptop bag over his shoulder, the kind of tech savvy that marked him as the club's digital specialist. "Already pulling everything I can access legally," Smoke said. "Accident reports, death certificates, autopsy records. But here's what's interesting. The accident report from July 12th lists Victor Castellano as first responder. He declared both Jennifer and Lucas Reynolds dead at the scene. But the official time of death for Lucas in the medical examiner's report, that's January 8th, 6 days ago. 2 death dates for the same child." Everyone went silent. "Why would there be 2 death dates?" Patricia asked. Jax spoke up, his voice hollow. "Because I wouldn't let go. For 6 months I kept having dreams where Lucas was calling to me, saying he was cold, asking me to find him. My therapist said it was grief. The club said it was guilt. But I couldn't shake it. So on January 8th, I held a second funeral, a final goodbye ceremony, to force myself to accept that he was gone." His voice broke. "Someone created a second death certificate, dated January 8th, to match my second funeral, to make it look real, to keep me from asking questions." "Jesus Christ," Reaper breathed. "They were monitoring you, knew you were struggling to accept his death. So they manufactured proof to help you move on. Smoke's fingers flew across his keyboard. I'm looking at the medical examiner who signed both death certificates, Dr. Raymond Pierce. He's been with Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office for 19 years. Solid record. But he paused, scrolling. He's got a pattern. Statistical anomaly. Higher rate of closed casket recommended cases than any other ME in the department. How much higher? V-Rex asked. 38% above average over the past 12 years. The number hung in the air like poison. 12 years, Jack said quietly. How many children in 12 years? Smoke kept typing. I'm cross-referencing closed casket child death cases with single-parent families, low-income families, cases where there might be fewer people asking questions. His face went pale. Conservatively? Could be anywhere from 25 to 40 children. The silence in that tunnel was absolute. Even the sound of motorcycles above had faded as engines cut off, brothers dismounting, waiting for orders. V-Rex's voice, when he spoke, was colder than Mia had ever heard a human voice go. We're not just taking down one corrupt paramedic. We're dismantling an entire trafficking network that's been operating under official cover for over a decade. We need witnesses, Reaper said. People who saw something and didn't speak up. People who suspected but stayed quiet. We need them on record. I know someone, Patricia said quietly. Linda Torres. She's an ER nurse at Detroit Receiving. Was on duty the night of Jax's accident. She mentioned to me months ago that something felt off that night. That Victor kept insisting they couldn't let Jax see the body. Said it was too traumatic. She said she should have pushed back. Bring her in, V-Rex ordered. Anyone else? Robert Hayes, another voice called from the tunnel. Social worker. He handled Lucas's case, or should have. I saw him at a bar last week, drunk, talking about how the system failed some kid, how paperwork got shuffled and a child fell through the cracks. Get him too. And Thomas Brennan, Wrench added. Retired firefighter. Worked with Castellano for 15 years. He's been saying for years that something about Vic's saves didn't add up, that the numbers were too good. Nobody listened. V-Rex looked at Reaper. How fast can you get these witnesses here? Within 2 hours if they're willing. Faster if we're persuasive. Be persuasive, but legal. Everything we do from here on out has to be airtight. The witnesses arrived in stages over the next 90 minutes. Linda Torres came first. 55 years old, emergency room nurse for 23 years, hands that still shook slightly when she talked about that July night. Mia watched as Reaper interviewed her in a makeshift command center the brothers had set up in one of the less damaged rooms on the ground floor. Someone had brought portable lights. Someone else had brought folding chairs and a card table. The bikers worked with military efficiency, assigning roles, establishing protocols, documenting everything. I was the charge nurse that night, Linda said, her voice steady but pained. July 12th, around midnight. The ambulance came in with 2 fatalities, mother and son from a car accident. Father was critical, taken straight to surgery. Victor Castellano was the paramedic supervisor. He kept insisting that the bodies were too damaged to show the family, that it would be traumatic. Is that normal protocol? Reaper asked. Sometimes, yes. In severe accidents. But something about the way he said it. Linda's hands twisted in her lap. And then later, when I saw the paperwork, the death certificate was already filled out. Already signed by the ME, that fast. That same night. Usually there's a delay. Lab work, identification confirmation, but this was immediate. Did you report your concerns? Linda's face crumpled. I mentioned it to my supervisor. She said Victor had been doing this job for 25 years, that he knew protocol, that grief makes people paranoid. I let it go. I shouldn't have. If I'd pushed harder, maybe... Patricia sat beside Linda, put a gentle hand on her shoulder. You're pushing now. That matters. Robert Hayes arrived next. 34 years old, social worker with Child Protective Services, eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days. I got the case notification, he said, voice flat. July 15th, 3 days after the accident. Child deceased, mother deceased, father hospitalized. I was supposed to do a welfare check, make sure the father had support systems in place. But when I pulled the file, there was already a closure notice. Signed by my supervisor, Sandra Oakes. Case marked, Family Deceased. No action needed. That's irregular? V-Rex asked. It's not irregular. It's procedure. Deceased child cases get closed. But... Hayes rubbed his face. I'd gotten 3 other case closures from Oakes that year. All children. All marked deceased or moved out of jurisdiction. All closed before I could do any follow-up. When I brought it up, she said I was being paranoid, that I was looking for problems where there weren't any. She recommended I take a stress leave. Did you? For 2 weeks. When I came back, she'd reassigned all my pending cases. Said I was overwhelmed, needed a lighter load. I accepted it. I shouldn't have. Reaper pulled up a file on Smoke's laptop. Sandra Oakes, CPS supervisor, 48 years old, 15 years with the department. She bought a $650,000 house in Birmingham 3 years ago on a salary of $58,000 per year. Hayes's face went white. Jesus, she's part of it. She's part of it, Reaper confirmed. Thomas Brennan was the last to arrive. 61 years old, retired firefighter, gray hair, and a gut that spoke of too many years sitting idle after retirement. I worked with Vic Castellano for 15 years, Thomas said. He looked at Jax with open anguish. I ate dinner with your family once. You came to the station with Lucas, wanted to show him the fire trucks. He was maybe 5 years old, kept asking if he could slide down the pole. His voice broke. I worked next to the man who stole your son for 15 years and I never saw it. What made you suspicious? V-Rex asked gently. The numbers. Vic's save rate was extraordinary, highest in the department. But his fatality declarations were also high, specifically with children. Not high enough to raise flags in the system, but high enough that I noticed. And every time, it was closed casket. Every single time. When I mentioned it to the captain, he said Vic just got the worst calls. Bad luck. Coincidence. Thomas looked down at his hands. I stopped asking questions. I'm part of the reason this kept happening. You're part of the reason we're stopping it now, Jax said quietly. By 8:47 p.m., less than 5 hours after Mia had approached Jax at the cemetery, the case was taking shape. Smoke had compiled a dossier that read like a nightmare. Victor Castellano, first responder, trafficker, network coordinator 7. Years Detroit Fire Department estimated 28 to 35 children trafficked over 12 years, current whereabouts, off-duty, home address, known, doctor. Raymond Pierce, medical examiner, falsified records, $340,000 gambling debt, verified through cross-referenced casino records, 38% higher. Closed casket rate than departmental average. Death certificates signed within hours instead of standard 24-48-hour time frame. Sandra Oakes, CPS. Supervisor, blocked investigations $650,000. Home on $58,000 salary, mortgage records pulled. Pattern of premature case closures matching Castellano's fatality declarations. 47 cases closed without standard welfare checks over 8-year period. Officer Derek Munson. Detroit PD. Evidence tampering. 3 excessive force complaints. Solds, all dismissed. Partner to accident reports filed by Castellano. Lost evidence in 12 cases over 6 years. We need to take this to the FBI, Reaper said. This is federal. Trafficking, conspiracy, corruption at multiple levels. Agreed, V-Rex said. But first, we secure Lucas's testimony. Doc Miller's on his way. He'll examine Lucas, document everything medically. Patricia's photographs are time-stamped and geotagged. Witness statements are recorded. We hand this to the feds as a complete package. What about Castellano? Jax's voice was dangerous. He's out there right now, free. While my son, he won't be free for long, V-Rex promised. Smoke looked up from his laptop. I've been monitoring police scanners. APB just went out for Victor Castellano. Federal warrant. FBI's already moving. How? Mia asked. The first word she'd spoken in an hour. Reaper smiled grimly. Because I used to be Detroit PD. I still know who's clean. Made a call to an old friend who made it to the FBI. Sent him everything we compiled. He moved fast. The room went quiet. Waiting. Then Smoke's police scanner crackled to life. Unit 17, suspect in custody, 2847 Riverside Drive. Victor Castellano, detained without incident. Without incident. That was the key phrase. No violence, no chase. Just justice moving with quiet efficiency. Where was he? V-Rex asked. Smoke pulled up the location. Listened to scanner chatter. His expression shifted to something like disgust. His house. He was in his garage, working on his truck. They said he looked confused when they showed up. Asked what this was about. Like he had no idea. Like trafficking children for 12 years was just normal. Jax made a sound low in his throat. Patricia put a hand on his arm. Steadying. Pierce and Oakes? Reaper asked. Pierce at his office, arrested during evening shift. Oakes at her home. Smoke paused. Munson's in the wind. Someone must have tipped him. He won't get far, V-Rex said. Not with every biker in Michigan looking for a dirty cop. The FBI arrived at the Packard plant at 9:15 p.m. 3 agents, including Reaper's contact, a woman in her 40s named Sarah Chen, 20 years with the Bureau, specializing in trafficking cases. She took one look at the 200 bikers surrounding the building, the organized command center, the documented evidence, and Lucas sleeping in his father's arms, and said simply, "You've done our job for us." "We did our job," V-Rex corrected. "Our job is protecting our own. Your job is making sure they stay in prison." Agent Chen nodded. "They will. What you've compiled here, witness statements, medical documentation, financial records, digital evidence, this is better than 90% of cases that land on my desk. The charges will be federal, conspiracy to traffic minors, multiple counts of kidnapping, fraud, corruption. Pierce and Oakes are looking at 20 to life. Castellano." She paused. "Castellano's looking at multiple life sentences." "There are other children," Jax said quietly. Lucas stirred against his chest, but didn't wake. "Lucas said there were other kids in that basement. He said they got moved. Sold. Where are they?" "That's what we're going to find out," Chen promised. "With Lucas's testimony and the evidence you've gathered, we can start dismantling the entire network. Find the other victims. Bring them home." She looked at the assembled bikers. I know what people think when they see this many Hell's Angels in one place. They think violence, chaos, crime. But what I'm seeing here is a brotherhood that moved heaven and earth to save one child and expose a system that failed him. That's not crime. That's justice. V-Rex nodded once. We know what we are. We don't need permission to protect our own. You have my respect, Chen said, and my word that we'll handle this right. The room went silent. Then V-Rex turned to the assembled brothers, over 180 of them now, filling every available space in the ground floor. Brothers, his voice carried, all in favor of turning this case over to federal authorities and trusting them to see justice through? For exactly 4 seconds, nothing. Just the distant sound of traffic on I-94 and the ticking of someone's watch, and the collective breath of 180 men waiting to vote on whether justice would be served through the system or outside it. Then, one by one, every hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation, not a single dissenting voice. 180 men voting unanimously to trust the system they'd spent lifetimes distrusting because a father and his son deserved the protection of law, not the chaos of revenge. Unanimous, V-Rex said. Agent Chen, he's yours. But we're not leaving. Not until Lucas is safe in a hospital. Not until we know for certain the people who did this can't reach him. Fair enough, Chen said. And for what it's worth, I'm glad you're staying. Dr. Raymond Miller arrived at 9:45 p.m. with a medical bag that looked like it had seen 3 decades of house calls. He was 72 years old, semi-retired, and had been the Hells Angels' unofficial doctor for 20 years. He'd stitched knife wounds in clubhouse back rooms and delivered babies in motorcycle sidecars. But when he saw Lucas, this tiny, broken child wrapped in his father's leather vest, his weathered face softened in a way Mia had never seen a doctor's face soften. Hello, Lucas, Dr. Miller said gently, kneeling beside Jax. Your daddy tells me you've been very brave. I'm going to make sure you're healthy enough to go home. Is that okay? Lucas nodded against his father's chest. He hadn't let go of Jax for over 3 hours. The examination took 45 minutes. Dr. Miller worked slowly, explaining each step, asking permission before touching, letting Lucas maintain contact with his father the entire time. Patricia assisted, her nursing training evident in the way she anticipated what was needed before Dr. Miller asked. When he finished, Dr. Miller pulled Jax aside. Not far, Lucas could still see his father, but far enough for privacy. Pneumonia in both lungs, early stage but developing. Severe malnutrition. He's lost approximately 20 pounds. Frostbite damage to toes, non-critical but will require monitoring. The broken fingers healed incorrectly, will need surgical correction. Rope burns are infected. Cigarette burns are scarred permanently. Dr. Miller's voice was clinical, but his eyes were furious. He needs a hospital, intravenous antibiotics, nutrition support, proper imaging to check for internal injuries. I can stabilize him here, but he needs more than I can provide. Children's Hospital? Jax asked. Children's Hospital, Dr. Miller confirmed. I'll call ahead. Make sure they know to expect him. Make sure the right people are waiting. Agent Chen stepped forward. We'll have federal protection. No one gets near him without authorization. And 200 bikers, V-Rex added. We'll establish a rotation. Someone from the club outside his hospital room 24 hours a day until you tell us it's safe. Dr. Miller smiled slightly. That might be the most secure pediatric patient in Michigan history. The ambulance that came for Lucas was driven by paramedics Chen personally vetted. Jax rode with his son, refusing to be separated. V-Rex, Patricia, and Reaper followed on their bikes. And behind them, in a formation that would later be described by local news as unprecedented, rode 87 Hells Angels. The convoy moved through Detroit's east side like a protective wall. Cars pulled over. People stopped on sidewalks to watch. By the time they reached Children's Hospital, the parking lot was surrounded by motorcycles, brothers dismounting in organized rows, taking up positions at every entrance. Mia watched from the back of Wrench's bike. He'd offered her a ride, said she deserved to see this through. She'd never felt so safe in her entire life. Inside, Lucas was admitted immediately. Private room on the pediatric floor. Federal agents at the elevator. Hell's Angels at the door. Nurses who'd been briefed on exactly what this child had endured, and who treated him with a gentleness that made Mia's throat tight. Jax never left his side. Sat in a chair pulled up to the hospital bed, holding Lucas's hand even when his son finally fell into real sleep. The kind of sleep that comes when your body knows it's safe, when exhaustion can finally claim you without fear. The logistics unfolded over the next 3 days with the same efficiency the brothers had shown at the Packard plant. Wrench, the mechanic who ran the club's legitimate garage, personally delivered Jax's belongings to the hospital. Clothes, toiletries, Lucas's teddy bear from Jax's apartment, the twin Spider-Man figure that had been on Jax's keychain for 6 months. When Lucas woke up and saw both Spider-Man figures reunited on his bedside table, he cried. Not the broken sobs from the factory, but something gentler. Relief. Healing. Home. St. Marcus, the former Army Ranger, father of twin girls, coordinated with hospital administration, made sure Jax could stay in Lucas's room indefinitely, made sure meal trays came for both of them, made sure the nursing staff knew exactly who to call if anyone suspicious showed up. Doc Patricia visited daily, sat with Lucas when Jax needed to shower or make phone calls, read him stories, taught him breathing exercises for when the nightmares came. Because they would come, she explained gently, and that was normal, and they'd face them together. Reaper worked with Agent Chen and Detroit PD's internal affairs, built timelines, cross-referenced cases, found 6 more children over the past 12 years who'd been declared dead in similar circumstances. Closed casket, rushed identification, families too traumatized to push back. Federal investigators were now searching for those children. 2 had already been located in other states, alive, recovered from adoptive families who'd had no idea they were purchasing trafficked children. Smoke set up a secure laptop in Lucas's hospital room, let him play games when he felt strong enough, taught him basic coding. Because smart kids like you need to keep their brains busy, Smoke said with a wink. Lucas smiled. First real smile Mia had seen. And Mia was told she wasn't leaving either. V-Rex found her on the 3rd day, sitting in the hospital cafeteria with a cup of free coffee she'd been nursing for an hour, trying to figure out where to go next. Her mother's car was parked 3 blocks away. Her mother was at work. The community center didn't open for 2 more hours. "Kid," V-Rex said, sliding into the chair across from her. "We need to talk about you." Mia tensed. "I should go. I don't want to be in the way." "You're not in the way. You're family now. You saved one of ours. That makes you one of ours." He paused. "Jax told me about your situation. You and your mother living in a car, her working 3 jobs. You dropped out of school to help her. Mia said nothing. Here's what's going to happen, V-Rex continued. The club has a fund, Brotherhood Emergency Fund, for members' families in crisis. We're extending it to you. First month's rent plus security deposit on a 2-bedroom apartment. I've already got 3 places lined up for your mother to look at. All East Side, near bus lines, safe neighborhoods. We can't, Mia started. You can. You will. V-Rex's voice was firm but kind. Your mother's working 3 jobs and can't get ahead because the system's rigged against people like her. We're unrigging it. 1 month's breathing room, that's all. After that, she keeps working. You go back to school, and you both get the chance you deserved all along. Mia's eyes burned. Why? Because that's what we do. We protect our own. And you, Mia Carter, are ours now. 6 months later, Mia stood in the parking lot of East Detroit High School, her backpack slung over one shoulder. New backpack, bought with money from her first paycheck from the part-time job Wrench had given her at the garage, answering phones and doing filing. Her mother had taken the apartment V-Rex arranged. 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor of a renovated building, rent-controlled, bus stop right outside. She'd quit 2 of her 3 jobs, started taking night classes for her GED. Smiled more, slept more, looked like a person instead of a ghost. Mia had re-enrolled in school, sophomore year. Her teachers said she was behind, but catching up fast. She'd always been smart. Hunger and homelessness hadn't changed that, just delayed it. She'd made honor roll her first semester back. The principal had called her mother. Her mother had cried. Today was different, though. Today was the day Lucas came to visit. The Harley pulled up at exactly 3:15 p.m. Jax was punctual about pickups now. Never wanted Lucas waiting. Lucas hopped off the back, removed his helmet, proper helmet now, child-sized, Spider-Man design, and ran toward Mia with the energy of a healthy 8-year-old. He'd gained back the 20 pounds, plus 5 more. His fingers had been surgically corrected, now worked perfectly. The scars remained. Rope burns, cigarette burns, reminders of 6 months that would never fully fade. But they were healing, fading to white, becoming part of his story instead of the whole story. Mia! Lucas crashed into her with a hug that nearly knocked her over. Guess what? I'm starting Little League. Dad signed me up. He's going to be the assistant coach. Mia laughed. That's amazing, Lucas. Jax approached more slowly, hands in pockets, wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of his vest. He saved the leather for club business now, kept it separate from dad business. He'd gained weight, too, started smiling again. The broken bear had learned to live. How's school? Jax asked Mia. Good. Really good. Your mom? Starting her 2nd semester of GED classes. She thinks she might try for college after. Social work, maybe. Jax nodded slowly. The world could use more people like your mom. People who keep fighting even when the system's designed to make them fail. They stood there for a moment, the 3 of them, in a high school parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon in June. Sunlight warm on their faces. Birds singing in the trees that lined the athletic fields. The sound of students laughing as they headed to after-school activities. Normal. Safe. Alive. Hey, Mia. Lucas tugged her sleeve. Can you come to my first game? It's Saturday at 10. Dad says you can ride with us. I'll be there, Mia promised. 3 months after that. 9 months after the cemetery, after the factory, after the impossible truth. Lucas James Reynolds stood on a small stage in the Hells Angels Detroit clubhouse, microphone in hand, looking out at 200 bikers and their families gathered for the annual Brotherhood barbecue. He wore his Little League uniform. His team had made playoffs. He'd hit a home run in the championship game. The trophy sat on a table beside him, almost as tall as he was. But that wasn't why he was on stage. "I want to say thank you," Lucas said, his voice small but steady. "To everyone. For finding me. For protecting me. For making the bad people go away." Victor Castellano had been sentenced to 8 consecutive life terms, without possibility of parole. Dr. Raymond Pierce got 25 years. Sandra Oakes got 18. Officer Derek Munson, caught trying to flee to Canada, got 15 years and would never wear a badge again. 6 other children had been recovered. 3 more were still being searched for, but the network was dismantled, the system exposed. Reforms were already being implemented: mandatory secondary confirmation for child death certificates, independent review of closed casket recommendations, whistleblower protections for emergency responders who reported concerns. "And I want to say thank you to Mia," Lucas continued, pointing to where she sat near the back, trying to be invisible as always. "Because she found me when I was hiding. She fed me when I was hungry. And she was brave enough to tell my dad the truth, even though she was scared." Every head turned toward Mia. She felt her face heat. "Mia saved my life," Lucas said simply. "And I'm going to remember that forever." The applause started slow, then built. 200 bikers and their families, standing, clapping for a 16-year-old girl who'd been homeless and invisible 9 months ago. V-Rex stood, raised his hand. The applause stopped. "Mia Carter," he said, his voice carrying across the clubhouse. "The club has voted, unanimous decision. We're giving you a road name. From this day forward, when you're with us, you're Little Hawk. Because you see what others miss. Because you act when others look away. Because you've earned your place in this family." Mia felt tears slip down her face. She didn't try to hide them. "Little Hawk," the assembled brothers repeated. Not a chant. A recognition. An acceptance. Family. This story isn't really about bikers or patches or motorcycles rumbling through city streets. It's about a 15-year-old girl who had every reason to look away, who was fighting her own desperate battle for survival, who had nothing to give, choosing to act anyway. Choosing to see another human being in need and refuse to let him die alone. It's about a father who never stopped listening to the voice that said something was wrong, even when everyone told him to move on, to heal, to accept. Who held on to a plastic Spider-Man figure for 6 months because letting go felt like betrayal. It's about 200 men who could have chosen revenge and violence, but chose justice and patience instead. Who understood that real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how much you can protect without destroying yourself in the process. There are Lucases everywhere. Children falling through cracks that shouldn't exist. Children being hurt by people who are supposed to protect them. Children being erased by systems that are designed to fail them. And there are Mias everywhere. People barely surviving themselves, who still find the courage to speak up when they see wrong. Who risk what little they have to help someone who has even less. You don't need a leather vest to be a protector. You don't need a motorcycle, or a patch, or a Brotherhood of 200. You just need to care enough to act. Pay attention. Listen when a child hesitates. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Call the right people. Make the noise that needs to be made. Stand in the gap between a victim and the system that's failing them. Be the person who doesn't look away. Because here's what Mia proved that frozen January afternoon. Sometimes the most powerless person in a room holds the key to saving someone else's entire world. Sometimes the person society overlooks is the only one brave enough to speak the truth nobody wants to hear. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, that person finds a family waiting to catch them when they fall. If this story moved you, subscribe to Gentle Bikers and share it with someone who needs to remember that real protectors still exist. Drop a comment telling us who your protector was or who you protected when nobody else would. Let us know you stand with Mia, with Lucas, with every person who refuses to stay silent when they see wrong. Because this world needs more little hawks. And maybe, just maybe, that person could be you. The sun set over Detroit on a warm September evening, turning the sky orange and pink. In a 2-bedroom apartment on the east side, Mia Carter sat at a small desk doing homework. Her mother cooked dinner in the kitchen, humming along to radio. The scent of spaghetti sauce filled the space. Mia's phone buzzed. Text from Lucas. "Game tomorrow at 1 p.m. You coming?" She smiled. Typed back. "Wouldn't miss it." Through her window, she could hear the distant sound of motorcycles, the brothers on their evening ride. Protected, protecting, living the code they'd taught her. Stand up, speak out, never look away. Her plastic Spider-Man figure, the one Lucas had given back to her after the reunion, saying, "You saved me, you keep Spidey," sat on the corner of her desk, paint chipped, one leg bent. A symbol of impossible hope that turned out to be real. She picked it up, held it for a moment, then set it back down. Tomorrow she'd go to Lucas's game. Sit with Jax. Cheer too loud. Feel like family. Tonight she'd finish her homework, eat dinner with her mother, sleep in a real bed in a warm room in a safe place. And somewhere in Detroit, another child who needed help would hopefully find their own voice, their own protector, their own impossible salvation. Because Mia Carter had proven something that cold January day. Miracles don't always come from heaven. Sometimes they come from a homeless girl with a plastic toy and the courage to speak 6 impossible words. "He's alive. He's been waiting for you." Now, let me step out of the story for a moment to talk directly to you. If you see a child in immediate danger, bruises that don't match the story, a kid begging strangers for help, signs of starvation or confinement, you call 911 right that second. Not after you think about it, not tomorrow. Now. For trafficking, it's the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-3737-888. And that line is staffed 24/7 every single day. For ongoing abuse or neglect that isn't an emergency this instant, you call Child Protective Services. Every state has a hotline. Elder abuse? Adult Protective Services handles that, same system. You don't need proof, just reasonable concern. "I saw a child with unexplained injuries" is enough. The call can be anonymous, and you're legally protected for reporting in good faith. Here's what matters. If you see something and stay silent, nothing changes. If you make the call, today, not next week, you give that child or elder a chance someone might show up. CPS is there to investigate, not punish you for caring. It takes 60 seconds. Make the call.